Today is the 21st of February, 1998. Today we're going to discuss supramundane consciousness. Before we begin, though, I would like to add some things to our discussions of lokia, or mundane, consciousness. We learned about form sphere consciousness and formless sphere consciousness, right? What's the difference between the two? With Lokuttara Citta, in order to attain the first jhana we have to contemplate a kasina or some other object. To attain the higher rupa jhana, what do we have to do? Contemplate the same object. So, form sphere consciousness has the same object. But for formless sphere consciousness, we take different objects. This is the difference between Rupavikara jhana and Arupavikara jhana. For the first Arupavikara jhana, the object taken is infinite space. For the second Arupavikara jhana, the object taken is the first Arupa Kusala Citta. The third jhana's object is the absence of consciousness, i.e., nothingness. And the fourth jhana's object is the third Arupa Kusala Citta. What does this last one mean? It means no perception but also no non-perception. We can't say it's nothing, nor can we say it is something. This object of the fourth Arupa jhana is very, very subtle. That's why we call it neither perception nor non-perception. See? They take different objects. With regard to the fourth Arupa jhana, it's a bit like this. Let's say you go somewhere and bring along 35 cents to make a call using a public telephone. While you're out, someone asks to borrow $1 from you. You might reply, I don't have any money. You do, though, right? You have 35 cents. But this is very little money. So you just say you don't have any money. In the same way, neither perception nor non-perception doesn't mean that there is no object. This type of consciousness still has an object, but it's so subtle. When we practice meditation and eventually reach higher vipassana knowledge, we will understand this point clearly. We may find ourselves sitting in meditation and unable to feel our body. We have a body, of course, but it's very subtle. I hope that you can one day experience this. It's very, very subtle. So, the objects of Rupavikara Citta and Arupavikara Citta are different. With Arupavikara Citta, there are objects taken and objects surmounted, or already past. The first Arupajhana object taken is infinite space. The surmounted object is the counterpart sign of the kasina object. The second Arupajhana object taken is infinite consciousness. The object surmounted is first Arupavikara Kusala Citta. The third Arupajhana object taken is the absence of consciousness. The object surmounted is first Arupavikara Kusala Citta. The fourth Arupajhana object taken is the third Arupavikara Kusala Citta. The object surmounted is the absence of the first Arupavikara Kusala Citta. It's actually not as complicated a concept as it sounds. In school, a second grade student takes the second year class, right? He has already passed, surmounted, first grade. See? It's the same. Whoever takes fourth grade has already passed third grade but is still taking fourth grade. Two kinds of jhana. There is something else special to know about jhana. That is, there are two kinds of jhana. You might not know this. The first kind is called Aramana Upanijhana. This kind of jhana closely examines the object. The word Aramana means object and the word Upanijhana means to examine closely. So if we closely examine the object, this kind of jhana is called Aramana Upanijhana. We have Rupavikara jhana and Arupavikara jhana, right? There are 5 or 4. Remember the two methods we talked about? Rupavikara jhana, and there are 4 Arupavikara jhana. These 9, or 8, attainments are called Aramana Upanijhana. Why? Because they closely examine the mental object, earth kasina, and so on. These attainments are all samatha, calmness, meditation. Mostly, their object is a concept. The second kind of jhana is called Lakkhana Upanijhana. This kind of jhana closely examines characteristics. The word lakkhana means characteristics. So if the jhana closely examines characteristics, it's called Lakkhana Upanijhana. What are these kinds of jhana? Vipassana, Magga and Phala. These are called Lakkhana Upanijhana. So, if we're talking about the regular jhanas, that is, Rupavikara jhana and Arupavikara jhana, it is called Aramana Upanijhana. But Vipassana, Magga and Phala are called Lakkhana Upanijhana. They are also regarded as jhana. These are the two kinds of jhana. Vipassana closely examines the characteristics of impermanence, sorrowfulness, and soullessness. In other words, the characteristics of mind and matter. Vipassana closely examines these characteristics. That's why Vipassana is also called jhana. What kind? Lakkhana Upanijhana. As for Magga, when we attain it then Nibbana is the object taken. Magga's object is Nibbana. It's not a characteristic, So why do we call Magga one of the Lakkhana Upanijana? The reason is that the accomplished work of Vipassana is Magga. So when we practice meditation and eventually complete our duty, our work, i.e., we attain enlightenment, it's called Magga. Magga is what is accomplished when the work of Vipassana is done. And that's why we call Magga a jhana, and one of the Lakkhana Upanijana. Lastly, after Magga Citta, path consciousness, arises, Phala consciousness follows right away. Phala is also called Lakkhana Upanijana because it closely examines the truth of cessation. The truth of cessation means nibbana, right? Nibbana is the characteristic of truth. That's why we also call Phala a kind of jhana. So now we know there are two kinds of jhana. People don't often talk about the two kinds of jhana, but they are mentioned in the teachings. The Dhammapada, for example, talks about the two kinds of jhana. This book is very famous in Buddhism. It's like a Bible. It talks about how the Buddha said, "You yourself must make the effort." The Tathagatas, this means Buddhas, are only proclaimers. Those who have entered the path and closely examined by jhana will become free from the bonds of Mara. Path is Magga, which we call jhana, and free from the bonds of Mara means that we don't have to be reborn again. In order to not have to be reborn again, we need to gain the fourth stage of Magga Phala, which we call arahantship. Someone who gains the first kind of jhana may be just an ordinary worldling. But here, the Buddha is not talking about Rupavikara jhana and Arupavikara jhana. He is talking about Magga Phala, which is also called jhana. The commentary also mentions these two kinds of jhana. So when you see a book talking about two kinds of jhana, you'll know exactly what it means. Aramana Upanijana and Lakkhana Upanijana. The first means Rupavikara Citta and Arupavikara Citta. The second means Vipassana, Magga and Phala. When the Buddha talked about being released from the bonds of Mara, he was referring to the three planes of existence, Kamavikara, the 11 planes of the sense sphere realm, Rupavikara, the 16 planes of the form sphere realm, and Arupavikara, the 4 planes of the formless sphere realm. He was talking about these 31 realms of existence. So, regarding these two kinds of jhana, if you just closely observe the object, then it is samatha meditation. But if you examine the object's characteristics in terms of anicca, dukkha and anatta, then it's vipassana meditation. When we practice meditation, is it samatha or vipassana? We can know for ourselves what type of meditation we are practicing. We should know about these two kinds of jhana. Now, we go to Lokuttara. Lokuttara Citta is of 8 types. We have 81 types of Lokiya Citta, mundane consciousness, so when we add Lokuttara Citta and Lokiya Citta, we come up with 89 types of consciousness, in brief. Broadly, though, there are 121 types of consciousness. Among Lokuttara Citta, we have 4 types that are Lokuttara Kusala Citta. I want you to understand what these various words mean. You already know some of them, of course. But what is Loka? Loka means the world of 5 aggregates. Uttara means transcends. So, the transcendence of the world of 5 aggregates is called Lokuttara. And Kusala means wholesome consciousness, right? So we have 4 types of Lokuttara wholesome consciousness. We also have 4 types of Lokuttara Vipaka, resultant, consciousness. Lokuttara Kusala Citta is Magga, or path, and Lokuttara Vipaka Citta is Phala, or fruit. Let's look at Magga. Here, Kusala and Magga mean the same thing, so we can say Kusala or Magga, or path. What does path mean? It means the group of 8 factors, right understanding, right thought, and so on. These 8 kinds of mental states, they are not consciousness, are collectively called Magga. So, Magga Citta, path consciousness, is consciousness accompanied by path, i.e., by the group of 8 factors. What's the first Magga Citta? 1. Sotapatti Magga Citta. Sota means stream, the stream of the Aryan path. Where does the stream go? It goes to Nibbana. Once you reach this stream, it will lead you to Nibbana. Sotapatti consists of 2 words, sota and apatti. Patti means reaching in the prefix, a means first, so Sotapatti refers to first reaching, or first arriving. Arriving where? It means arriving for the first time at the stream of the Aryan path. This path consciousness is obtained through reaching the stream of the noble path for the first time. It means that someone practiced insight vipassana meditation and finally attained enlightenment. And that first moment of consciousness upon doing so is called Sotapatti Magga Citta. At that moment, the person is no longer an ordinary worldling person. He is now an Arya, a very pure, noble person, a saint. This person becomes a stream enterer, stream winner or stream attainer. 2. Sakadagami Magga Citta. A being who comes back only once more to this human world is called a Sakadagami, or once returner. Sakadagami Magga Citta is the path consciousness of one who comes back once to the human world. 3. Anagami Magga Citta. Anagami means one who does not come back. Anagami Magga Citta is the path consciousness of one who does not come back to the sensuous world. It's different from Sakadagami, right? A Sakadagami doesn't come back to the human world but once, but an Anagami doesn't at all come back to the sensuous world. In other words, the 7 realms of the human and celestial worlds. 4. Arahata Magga Citta. Arahata means one who is worthy of accepting offerings. It is the state of being an arahant. Arahata Magga Citta is the path consciousness of the state of being a worthy one. A student interrupts with a question. Q. How does this compare to the concept of a bodhisattva? A bodhisattva is a being who will one day become a Buddha. For now, though, he's still a worldling person, not a noble person. He hasn't gained enlightenment yet. He's just an ordinary person. A bodhisattva can't gain enlightenment right now because he is waiting until his final existence to gain enlightenment as a Buddha and enter Nibbana. For the time being, he is just an ordinary worldling person who chose to defer his enlightenment and focus instead on helping others. It's a bit like choosing whether you want to finish school in 12 years, or instead stay in school longer to get an advanced degree. A bodhisattva is like one who stays in school longer to get their advanced degree. A bodhisattva wants to become a Buddha and be a great teacher of gods and men all over the world. They have to practice for so long to acquire the virtue perfections of a Buddha. In the meantime, they are not a saint yet, not an Arya. They are still an ordinary worldling person, a Puthujjana. So among the 8 types of supramundane consciousness, we have 4 types that are wholesome supramundane consciousness. The first path consciousness of the stream enterer is Sotapanna Magga Citta. The second path consciousness of the once returner is Sakadagami Magga Citta. The third path consciousness of the non-returner is Anagami Magga Citta, and the fourth path consciousness of the arahant is Arahata Magga Citta. We'll talk about these people now. The 8 kinds of Aryans. Phala means fruit, fruition or result. When you practice meditation, reach the highest vipassana knowledge, and gain enlightenment for the first time, Sotapanna Magga Citta occurs. It occurs just one time, for one thought moment. After that one thought moment, Sotapanna Phala Citta immediately arises. At the time of gaining enlightenment, at the moment of the first consciousness of stream entry, the person is called a Sotapanna Magga person. Maybe you know that we have 8 kinds of Aryans. Normally, we have 4 types of Magga, right? And when we gain enlightenment for the first time, Sotapanna Magga Citta arises. At that moment, this person is called a Sotapanna Magga person. After this first Sotapanna Magga Citta arises and disappears, Phala Citta immediately follows. At this moment, the person is called a Sotapanna Phala person, or a stream enterer. See how there are 2 persons? Then, we continue practicing meditation and contemplate the 3 characteristics until we gain Sakadagami Magga and Sakadagami Magga Citta arises. At that moment, the person is called a Sakadagami Magga person. Immediately, Phala Citta follows. From that moment until the meditator gains a higher stage of enlightenment, he is called a Sakadagami, or once returner. If the meditator continues to practice meditation and gains the 3rd stage of enlightenment, Anagami Magga Citta arises. At that moment, he is called an Anagami Magga person. Immediately, Anagami Phala Citta arises. From that moment until the meditator gains the highest stage of enlightenment, he is called a non-returner. If the meditator continues to practice meditation and reaches the 4th stage of enlightenment, Arahata Magga Citta arises. At that moment, he is called an Arahata Magga person. Phala Citta immediately follows. From that moment until he enters Nibbana, we call this person an arahant. So, we have 8 types of noble persons. Using the Sotapanna example, we have a Sotapanna Magga person and a Sotapanna Phala person. The former is called that for just one moment, the moment path consciousness arises. After that, Phala Citta immediately arises. From that moment until the person gains the 2nd stage of enlightenment, he is called a stream enterer. You understand this, right? We have 8 kinds of noble persons. The 121 types of consciousness. In all, we have 89 types of consciousness. We're talking now about those who practice only vipassana meditation and gain enlightenment. They have just the 4 Magga Citta and 4 Phala Citta. There's no jhana. See that? With a person who only practices vipassana meditation and gains enlightenment, we have just 89 types of consciousness. But someone who practices samatha meditation and gains jhana can also practice vipassana meditation and gain enlightenment. For this person, we have 40 types of Lokuttara Citta, supramundane consciousness. This is because they practice samatha and gain jhana and then practice vipassana meditation to gain enlightenment. These people have Lokuttara Citta divided into 40 types. I'll explain. Let's say someone practices samatha meditation and gains one or more of the 5 types of rupavichara jhana. Or maybe he gains one or more of the 4 types of arupavichara jhana. Perhaps the person gains the first rupajhana as the basis for his enlightenment. He should contemplate upon this jhana, which consists of 5 factors: vitakka, vichara, piti, sukha, and ekagata. Since he would like to gain enlightenment, he emerges from the first jhana and contemplates the factors of that jhana as the basis for enlightenment. Perhaps he contemplates vitakka, piti or sukha as examples. With sukha as a sensation, he may contemplate it in terms of the 3 characteristics, perhaps in terms of its arising and disappearing. Then, he gains the first stage of enlightenment. In this scenario, what's the basis for gaining the first stage of enlightenment? It's jhana. Here, Sottapatti Magga resembles the first jhana together with vitakka, vichara, piti, sukha, and ekagata, the 5 factors of jhana. In the same way, the person in our example can perhaps gain the second jhana and use it as the basis for attaining Sottapatti Magga. This Magga would resemble the second jhana together vichara, piti, sukha, and ekagata. And the same applies for the 3rd, 4th and 5th jhanas. In this way, Sottapatti Magga can be attained through the 1st through 5th jhanas. The same applies for attaining Sakadagami Magga. Here, he enters the first jhana, then emerges and contemplates the 3 characteristics until he gains the second stage of enlightenment. This Magga also resembles the first jhana. So, the second stage of enlightenment, Sakadagami Magga Citta, can also be attained via the 1st through 5th jhanas. It's the same for Anagami Magga and Arahata Magga. That's why those who practice samatha meditation and gain jhana that acts as the basis for their enlightenment have 20 types of Lokuttara Kusala Citta, path consciousness, or wholesome consciousness. After Magga, Phala follows, right? For that reason, Phala also has 20 types. I hope you now understand how 89 types of consciousness become 121 types of consciousness. Some people practice samatha meditation, gain rupajhana or arupajhana, and use it as a basis to practice vipassana meditation and become a stream enterer, once returner, non-returner or arahant. For those, there are 121 types of consciousness. Others, like us, just practice vipassana meditation to gain enlightenment. We may later practice samatha meditation to gain jhana. For people like that, there are 89 types of consciousness. Qualities of enlightened ones. The stream enterer. When you attain the first stage of enlightenment, you will remove strong sense desire. Sense desire is not completely eliminated, so it continues to exist in a subtle way. Strong ill will is also removed. What do I mean by strong? I mean that the remaining sense desire and ill will are not strong enough to lead to rebirth in a woeful state. So the first Magga removes these 2 strong fetters. Also, self-delusion is removed entirely. That is, wrong view is gone. Additionally, adherence to wrong habits and practices, or rites and ceremonies, is eliminated. In the time of the Buddha, some meditators practiced self-mortification. They thought that doing so could bring defilements under control and eventually eradicate them. Some meditators would get into the Ganga River in the winter, it was so cold. Or they'd sleep on thorns. They thought these types of practices would help. There were also meditators who would behave like animals, maybe a cow or a dog, and they'd go around naked. They thought this would lead to enlightenment and that after death they'd go to heaven. This is wrong view, though. Some of them wouldn't use plates or eating utensils. Instead, they'd use their hands or lap up food directly from the ground like an animal. This is adherence to habits and practices. It is wrong view and wrong practice. Sottapatti Magga eradicates these fetters. It also eradicates all doubt. There is no longer any doubt about the Buddha, his doctrine, or his disciples. This person gains implicit confidence in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. There is no doubt about his practice because he has gained enlightenment by himself and knows. So, how many fetters has Sottapatti Magga removed? 3. Self-delusion, adherence to habits and practices, and doubt. Strong forms of sense desire and ill will have also been removed, though subtle forms remain. People may sometimes ask us, why do we have to practice meditation? What's the purpose? Now we know. We are talking about the first Magga, someone who has realized Nibbana for the first time. We call this person a stream enterer. He is one who has entered the stream leading to Nibbana. He has eliminated those 3 fetters and will be reborn again only 7 times at most, perhaps only 1 or 2 more times. Then, he will enter Nibbana and become an arahant. So a result of practicing meditation and gaining enlightenment is that you will be reborn at most 7 more times. Also, this person gains complete confidence in the Buddha, his doctrine, and his disciples. He will not be reborn again in a woeful state, i.e., as a hell being, an animal, or a ghost. Enlightenment closes the door to the woeful states. Normally, your unwholesome actions in the past could give results leading to rebirth in a realm like hell, but after you gain enlightenment all that strong karma is gone. Additionally, this person would never violate any of the 5 precepts. What are they? No killing, no stealing, no committing sexual misconduct, no lying, and no drinking alcohol. Whoever gains enlightenment will not violate these precepts. Let's say someone ended up in the hospital and was told that an animal could be killed so that some part of its body could be used to save the person's life. The stream enterer would refuse. He would say that he'd sooner die than have another creature killed for him. As another example, maybe the doctor tells the person that drinking a spoonful of alcohol will cure him of his ailment. The stream enterer will decline the medicine. Or maybe someone offers $1 million to another person if they'd be willing to go to court and lie on their behalf. A stream enterer will not do it. If a person steals, just a little bit, he is not a stream enterer. It's very easy to know if a person is enlightened if we pay attention to their following of the precepts. You might hear someone talk about how they've been practicing meditation for a long time, but they might comment that they still enjoy a beer now and then. This person is not a stream enterer. These are virtues of a sotapanna, a stream enterer. The once returner. Now, the stream enterer continues to practice meditation and gains the second Magga, Sakadagami Magga. What does he remove? He removes gross sense desire and ill will. What's gross mean? It means it's not as strong as it was for the stream enterer. The first Magga removes strong sense desire and ill will, and the second Magga removes gross sense desire and ill will. They are still not completely removed. These 2 fetters have been attenuated, they have been weakened. A once returner still has sense desire. He might look at a television show and feeling happy, or listen to a song and enjoy it. He might get angry too. This is ill will, but it's not so strong. Sakadagami Magga can only weaken sense desire and ill will. What can this type of person remove entirely? Nothing. The non-returner. When a being gains enlightenment for the 3rd time, Anagami Magga, he removes subtle sense sphere desire and ill will. Someone who becomes a non-returner still has some desire. Maybe he is attached to his jhana, or perhaps he wishes for rebirth in the form sphere realm. But a non-returner has removed subtle sense sphere desire and ill will. If someone was married before attaining Anagami Magga, afterward he will leave the relationship. Why? Because subtle sense sphere desire has been removed. In other words, he no longer has any desire to stay. There is no longer any desire for sense objects, such as visible objects, sounds, odors, tastes or tactile sensations. A non-returner also has no ill will. He doesn't get angry anymore. There is no anger at all. No domanassa. Why? Because dosa has been eradicated. So, a non-returner completely discards these 2 fetters. After death, he will be reborn in the pure abodes. How many planes are there in the pure abodes? 5, right? An anagami may be reborn there, and nowhere else. The arahant. A being continues to practice meditation and gains the 4th stage of enlightenment, Arahata Magga, and becomes an arahant. What has been eradicated by the attainment of Arahata Magga, consciousness, all greed for the fine material, experienced, form sphere. What about an arahant? All greed for the unwholesome consciousness, sphere, none. All this is because unwholesome consciousness and all ignorance have been eradicated. What about rootless consciousness? And in all, an arahant has eradicated all 10 fetters. Even an arahant has to experience these results. I'm referring to mental states. As such, these mental states are associated with consciousness. So let's talk about consciousness. He can experience all 7 types of unwholesome resultant consciousness. Can experience 12 types of unwholesome resultant consciousness. Of the 18 types of functional consciousness. He can experience all
wholesome
7 types of
consciousness?
unwholesome
No
consciousness.
wholesome consciousness
All
can
8
arise
types of
for an
resultant
arahant,
consciousness.
even if he
And the
does
first
something
2 types of
meritorious.
functional
In that
consciousness.
moment his mind is not
So,
wholesome.
for an ordinary worldling
Instead,
person,
it is functional.
all
Ahatuka
Citta
Citta,
consciousness,
except smile-producing
not
consciousness, can arise.
result in the future.
Next, we
So,
can look at the
an
8 types
arahant
of
without
beautiful
jhana
sense
can
sphere,
experience
wholesome
all 18
consciousness.
types of rootless consciousness.
If an ordinary person
combines
does something
16 types of
meritorious,
beautiful
one of those
resultant
8
and
can functional
arise.
consciousness,
One of
and
the 8 types
arahata
of
maga
resultant
citta
consciousness
and
can
arahata
arise
phala
as well.
citta.
But as for
Altogether,
functional
that's
consciousness,
36 types
only
of
Buddhas and
consciousness that an
arahants
arahant
can experience.
Those,
An arahant
if an
has
ordinary
no wholesome
person
or
doesn't
unwholesome
gain jhana,
consciousness,
then none
but
of
still
those
has
types of
resultant
consciousness
and
will
functional
be experienced.
consciousness.
And
If
if
no
questions?
enlightenment is
Q.
attained, then
Why
none
are
of
there
those
no
types
types
of
of functional
consciousness will be
consciousness in
experienced either.
supramundane consciousness?
So, how many
This
types
is
of
because
consciousness
path
are
consciousness
possible for
occurs
ordinary
only
people
once.
with no
If it
jhana?
occurred many times,
Altogether,
then you could have
45
functional
types are
consciousness.
possible.
What about
But it occurs only once.
Of the 12
Why
types
does
of
it occur
unwholesome
only
consciousness,
once? The 4
just
types
as lightning can
associated with
destroy
wrong
a tree
view
by
and the
hitting
one
it
type
just once,
associated with
path
doubt have been
consciousness
removed.
completes its function.
That's 7
the
types
total
remaining.
eradication
For
of
rootless
mental
consciousness,
defilements
it's
at
the
one
same
time.
as for an ordinary
Sotapati
worldling
maga
person,
eradicates
17
wrong
types.
view and doubt, right?
Such a person
This
also
happens just one
experiences
time.
the 16
If
types
it
of
could
beautiful
happen again,
consciousness.
there'd be no
Wholesome and
wrong
resultant
view or doubt
that
left
an
to
ordinary
eradicate.
person does.
Also,
And
the
the
job of
stream
the
enterer
fruit
also
attainment,
experiences
phala, is to
Sotapati
observe
maga
and enjoy
citta
the
and
supreme bliss
Sotapati
of
phala
Nibbana.
citta.
So that's
After
2 more
Sotapati
types.
phala arises,
Altogether,
it can
a
enjoy
stream
this
enterer
supreme
with
bliss
no
for
jhana
many
can
hours or
experience
even
42
many days. Types
Maga
of consciousness.
doesn't need to arise
What about
again
for
for this to happen.
Sakadagami?
May
It's
all
the
of you
same as for
practice
the stream
meditation
enterer,
and gain
right?
one kind of
This is
enlightenment
because
in
he
this
hasn't
very
eradicated
life.
anything.
Thank you.
The only
difference is that instead of Sotapati maga citta and Sotapati phala citta, the once returner experiences Sakadagami maga citta and Sakadagami phala citta. Otherwise, it's the same, 42 types of consciousness. As for the anagami, Lobha citta is still there. He is still attached to rupa, fine material, and arupa, immaterial, right? What about dosa? For a non-returner, there is no dosa or domanassa remaining. Dosa has been completely discarded. So, with no dosa, none of the 4 types of wrong view, and no doubt, only 5 types of unwholesome consciousness remain. Among the types of rootless consciousness, except smile-producing consciousness, he can experience all 17 types. And like the others, a non-returner can experience the 16 types of beautiful consciousness, wholesome and resultant. Lastly, there is anagami maga citta and anagami phala citta.